Will there be a scheduling for a hearing on this proposed law?
When everybody has a chance to look it over, then there will be a public hearing on it, yes, there will be.
Okay.
But we're not gonna schedule it tonight, or I don't think we should yet. So everybody's, you know. And just to be honest with it, I'm really, if we can get a good road use agreement with the Constitution, the road use law may sit idle.
I agree.
Be tabled for now, if we get a good road use agreement done. You know, that's my thought now, whether, you know, like, right, if I should have not said anything and just like, no, yes.
That would have the force of law, a road use agreement.
You've still got a force, you've got a written contract that if they do not adhere to the contract, then yes, any law, you're gonna have to go to court no matter one way or the other. Any law, I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, to have the force of law behind it, why is this an agreement? Why is it called an agreement?
The road use agreement is, that's,
It's different from an ordinance.
pardon?
It's different from an ordinance.
Yes, it is, yes.
So it should be an ordinance so that it has the force of law.
No.
One of the problems that you run into
Yeah.
with putting this in as a law, number one, who's gonna enforce all of this? Number two, costs money.
What, to enforce it?
Oh, absolutely it's gonna cost money.
Well,
First off, right off the bat, it would cost us $30,000 for a set of scales in this county, okay? So that our sheriff's department could come out and start checking weights. That's $30,000 that we gotta come up with, taxpayers.
Is that us or
money.
the county?
Well, us and county is.
We pay the county tax.
Huh?
We all pay county tax.
Oh, I know county tax, but I mean.
And we're all gonna pay it somehow,
But
whether
the
it goes through the
county-
town or not.
Yeah.
So it costs a lot of money to do this. Number one, besides that, every time that somebody has a bug about a new truck going through, are we gonna call up the county and have them come over and weigh it? They're not gonna do that. There's no law enforcement agency that's gonna do that. So basically, it comes back to the highway superintendent's gotta go out, stand in the middle of the road, wave it down, and get them weighed. And I'm not gonna do that, because I don't have a badge, I don't have a gun, I'm not law enforcement.
I don't know what the law is behind that, of course I don't know that, but it would be nice to be able to read that. It seems to me that every new truck that comes through on a job has to be weighed.
If there's a complaint about it,
If there's a complaint, well, if there's a complaint about a milk truck, you're gonna be weighing them, aren't you?
that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing boils down to, now are we gonna segregate? Are we gonna segregate the agriculture and the guys cutting stone, guys doing, all of this other stuff besides
Some of the gas
this?
company.
So all we're basically doing is we're going after the gas company. And that's discrimination. We're gonna all be sitting in court, all of us, every time that happens, when you go to a law like that. It makes no sense to me if we've got it as an agreement and we try to work this out as civil people.
Well, I thought that this lawyer said we could have an ordinance that has the force of law.
Yeah,
Lawyers like
ordinance
laws.
and law are the same
Because
thing.
who goes to court with you? When you go to court, who goes with you?
Who protects us?
A lawyer goes with you. So where's that money come from?
But who will protect us if it's just an agreement? These companies walk away, they don't care, they've got so much
Yep.
money, and they've got so many other places to be. Who protects us?
You know,
Hopefully,
I disagree.
the agreement. Hopefully,
Then
the,
who will
Well,
enforce the agreement?
let's take this up when it does become an issue, okay, just so, it's, you know, there may be more pressing. You know, this is just a, you know, I'm not saying it will be taken off, but at my consideration is holding on to it, it's there, it's it's put together for us, you know, so we can read it and see what we like and don't like, you know, and it's not gonna be thrown out, because we spent good money on having it done. But it is something that we could adopt if we wanted to. At this point, I wanna see where the road use agreement goes. You know, maybe it's gonna go, maybe, you know, we had this one highlight and all of a sudden it's go right to squat.
The whole thing may go nowhere, it's true.
That's right.
But in Cochecton, don't forget what happened in Cochecton. Every single taxpayer had a $2,000 bill because they had an agreement
I-
instead of a law.
Well, this representative from Delta, I talked to him today
Yeah,
about the cost and stuff. He said he's a mayor of a town in Pennsylvania,
uh-huh,
500 people in the town.
uh-huh.
And he said they did such a great job on their roads. They got better roads, better, I mean, they made out well. Now, this is one guy, I didn't ask,
Guy,
you
yeah.
know, but this is what he said, that they really made out well, and I know there's spots down there that have not, and I agree with that. But, you know, we wanna, you know, that, I shouldn't have said a thing, I'm sorry I did,
Yeah, sorry, you,
but at least you know where I'm standing, okay?
I thought you were standing on the other side for a while.
Well, I'm standing, I'm not, I don't like laws if you don't have to have them, I'm sorry.
It's, you don't have
Okay.
laws, you don't have to have them. The country is based on law, that's what people finally got.
Okay,
After
we're
millions
moving on,
and
Carol,
thousands of
we're
years.
moving on, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies first,
In Sydney,
yeah,
our town attorney, Mr. Ermetti, who you also use,
Yep.
he recommended that we had a law in Sydney in case they were recalcitrant and didn't want to sign an agreement. In fact, we have a law now, and they are balking at the agreement, but we have the law to fall back on, so they have to at least, there is something in place, even if they don't make an agreement up to
Right.
the last minute, we have a law that's there that they have to pay attention to. I'm just saying that.
yeah. Well, that was my biggest concern, is that they wouldn't come to the table and bargain.
In fact, that's what Mr. Ermetti says, is they're not returning his calls at all about.
Well,
making an
we've got
agreement.
response, so I'm not sure, and better response than, you know, Davenport has had a law since January. And they have come to an agreement on their road use agreement, but they haven't signed anything yet. So, and Dennis said, oh, grab it, don't wait, you know, sign the thing. I said, I'm gonna, you know, we wanna wait and see, there's gotta be other issues, I think still some issues. So, I mean, you know, I understand where, and that was my concern when we have our little caucus up at the county, you know, with the townships that are affected. You know, one said, oh, we gotta have a law, one said, they don't have the law, the county says they don't have a law, you know, so, I mean, everybody's going independently, which is probably kind of unfortunate. You know, instead of everybody getting on the same boat, you know, and trying to sail through smoothly. But I understand, and I agree with that aspect of it, you know, that's why I say, I'm not throwing it out, but it's, you know, if we can get a road use agreement without it, I'd like to try it. And have a good road use agreement, that's why the lawyer's still looking at it. Okay. Tim?
Yeah, with that law that you're looking to pass, or looking to have in there, we gotta live with that after they're gone.
Yes.
And that means a lot of neighbors, again, fighting with each other because somebody fixed so-and-so's driveway and they come by with too big a load on. And, you know, I come down the
There could be
road with a load of firewood for the neighbor and they didn't like it. We gotta live with this stuff after these guys are gone. So if we can get a good agreement with them, we don't need a law that we gotta fight with 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. I think Mike was next.
Do you want me to do it later, it's not the cell tower?
Oh, okay.
I'll do it later.
Well, okay. Yes, Cindy. Or at least Liz.
Mr. Doug,
Right, family.
this is about the road usage. I was wondering, how many miles of road will be affected by Constitution in the town of Franklin?
Don't know.
We don't know.
Okay, and is there a road use plan or a management plan, Mark, as you were saying, have they put that out, what roads they will use?
They haven't, they put somewhat of one through the FERC when they proposed it at the FERC. But I have not seen anything come back that's in stone.
Okay, so they don't know how many miles
No.
will be used.
We don't.
They do,
They do,
they do, we don't.
Constitution.
but we don't. And that's one of the things we're trying to get out of. And that's one of the things that Cheryl's working on, our lawyers, to get that in place. Once we find that out, a lot of this will be a lot simpler. But to go tack on a couple roads that probably are never gonna get used. It's not gonna benefit us. We really need to know where the management plan is gonna be, the road management plan.
And who will monitor for the road use agreement? Mark, you were saying that you wouldn't want to monitor for a road use law, but wouldn't we have to do monitoring for a road use agreement also?
Yes.
Who will do that
Be out,
monitoring?
and then that's part of what Delta's gonna help us do, too. You know, that's why we're gonna have classes and do it that way. But as far as, there's a complete difference, you know, we're gonna monitor this stuff and we're gonna bring back our, if we see something that we don't like, we can bring it back to Delta. Delta and the lawyers can work under what that agreement is, versus if it's a law, then you gotta get law enforcement involved, which, you know how well that works in this county or around rural upstate New York. Try to do that, that's why I'm against that part of it. But as far as going out there and looking at it day by day, you know, where they're going, that type of thing, yeah, be able to monitor that. And under the agreement, that's why we're trying to put the bonding in and all of that stuff, so that will get paid for. If you do it on a law type basis, we're not gonna get paid, it's gonna come out of our pockets to get that done.
Could they use roads that are not in that agreement?
Yeah. Yeah, they can. They're paying taxes, just like you and I do, to drive that road, just like we drive Otevo's roads, or we drive, you know, Town Oleana's roads. All of us, you know, we don't pay taxes there, but they're paying taxes basically overall. They're gonna go, and most of that you're gonna see is pickup trucks. Be the welders, the small job type stuff, and that's been one of our complaints that we're,
They're not one of the, in the numbers.
right, they're not in the numbers, and they keep saying to us that they're not responsible for those guys. That's been my argument back to Constitution, is you are gonna be accountable for everybody that's under your contract to put your pipeline in.
So if someone determined that a truckload was too heavy coming in through Constitution, maybe 10 trucks with maybe overloaded, who would then provide the scales to weigh them for the agreement?
State of New York.
Would Delta? Or
We'll just go after them. Right? We'll go after the Constitution, just like we're trying to do with the agreement.
They have to be weighed before they leave.
They're giving us set numbers like on the pipe that's coming in.
I know.
That's like 80,000 pounds, which,
Legal.
legal.
They have to be weighed.
22, about 22 loads per
22.
mile of pipeline.
Yep. So that stuff's all legal.
Pipe.
And then they're applying for permits to move the big stuff in. You know, so once they do that, if that's legal under the permit stuff, which they have to, because the state's gonna go after them, because they're gonna have to bring it in on state road and stuff, and they will be after them. So that, in effect, that's gonna help us. We don't have to buy a set of scales, Town of Franklin or Town of Sydney or whoever. So,
Going to Delta's presentation, I got the impression that it wasn't a matter of weighing an individual truck, but rather simply determining which type classification it is. And I thought that would be, that was the way it was done.
and hopefully that works, because that's the information we're trying to get back from Constitution. What kind of trucks, what they're gonna use, type of thing.
I've got a list of about 20 different kinds of trucks, from the
Yep.
littlest one to the biggest
I
one.
think that's just to figure out what kind of usage you're talking about,
Yeah.
Yep.
what kind of wear and tear. It
Right,
has nothing to do with violations. Okay, that's assuming all those trucks are legally loaded.
yeah.
That's just for a wear and tear thing, that's
Well,
not
that's
about,
what the road use agreement is about, isn't it?
yes.
Yes.
Are there existing load limits on all local roads now? I know they're not always posted, but For Henry Edwards Road, is there an existing load limit
Yeah.
for?
They're all at that 80,000 pounds.
Pete?
The state troopers do weigh the trucks, even downstate, you see them weigh the trucks, they pull everybody over.
They do it.
They'll take care, they'll give
See
them
them on
money,
88
they'll
there.
overload it, they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
They do it all over.
Travel on different
And they're
roads
gonna
before they get to
Look
these
for money.
roads.
It's not just money, if they're overloaded, you get into an accident.
Right, but they're looking for
That's
the
the main
fine.
cause.
They say, you know, they're looking for the money too. Yes.
Who does Constitution apply for the permits from? Is it just state? Or do they get permits?
Well,
State
for the road
Yeah.
permits?
And
It's
county,
just the state?
and the county.
Oh, and the county?
Yeah,
Okay.
Delaware County has a permit process in place.
No permits from town of Franklin?
That was one of the things that was asked. No, there isn't. That was one of the things that they were trying to do when Wayne brought that to Board of Supervisors, was to try to get that divisible load permit done throughout the county.
But
And being
someone said no?
included in the road use agreements.
Yes.
Right, and then
What was that, Jeff?
something about the divisible load, you know, now Mark can tell you more what that.
Divisible load is basically what, you take a truck and say you load that truck and you can, the 80,000 pounds comes in. You can remove part of that load to get at 80,000 pounds. If you take a crane that weighs 100,000 pounds, there is no way to get under that. So that's where all this permitting comes in, and then we know what actual weights and everything are on there. The county does not recognize the permits. So like you cannot take a truck of, say, like one of our 10-wheelers, the towns, it's at 66,000 pounds. Okay, that's the legal weight on there. You cannot go and get a permit for 80,000 pounds.
From the county?
They will not do that. The only thing that they'll look at is the permitting, at like a crane or something that you cannot remove the weight from. That's all.
I should think
Yes.
it ought to be called an indivisible load.
Should be, but it is not. It's all about confusion, I believe.
Yes, I just want to say that this news about the Delta is really exciting. I'm happy to see infrastructure finally being renewed and coming to the, I guess you could say the states. Because it's not only us that's going to benefit from that. And I just admire and I'm pleased with voting you guys into office because I really trust what you're doing and you are doing a great job. I appreciate all the due diligence that you guys have done. It's a lot of time and a lot of patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Gene.
That's the same thing I wanted to say. I wanted to thank you for all the work that you put in, listening to what we wanted.
Well, it is concerning,
And
you
hiring,
know.
and hiring Delta and working with Delta, you did the price the way you had it from the beginning.
That's, I mean, I was surprised that it was like that.
Hiring an attorney, you asked for that, and you did that. So I feel that you are protecting our investment in our roads,
Well, we're
which we
trying to
all
keep
really
taxes
own. And
under control.
hope that in the future, you'll do the same. 'Cause
Thank you.
I'm pleased with what you've done.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, I'll,
Go ahead.
all right. Thank you for the
Jason.
opportunity to speak. I also want to thank you for the work towards the road agreement to start. I would like to encourage you to go for the ordinance. I understand the complications of, getting law enforcement, but from hearing what Pete says about the state troopers being right down the road, it sounds like we might have that enforcement just a quick phone call away, particularly
We
since
don't have
Odeonta has, an interest in this as well. But I just encourage you to go for the ordinance. I think it's a stronger thing to do, but thank you for everything you're doing so far. And along with that, I respectfully request that you also ask the doctor in town, who you just gave the permit, to help create a baseline health study to establish a population health status before the compressor pipeline is built. I asked the board to begin writing an air quality ordinance or agreement, something like that. And I say that because the recommendations from the Madison County Health Department, in the event a compressor station comes to your town, are perform a baseline health study to establish population health status before it's built, require best practices to ensure that effective emissions control measures are kept up to date, establish an alert system for blowdowns or other large emissions and/or noise events, put emergency plans in place, institute a monitoring strategy at the compressor station and surrounding locations, institute a health registry. I think you know all that, but protecting the health of the citizens is the job, or part of the job of the town board, and as many people have told me, health is wealth. Also, we know there are no plans for Franklin to receive any of the energy benefits from the fuel that may be flying through here. If I had a product that people were concerned about, wouldn't I spend time, money, and effort to show those people how great my product is, how beneficial it will be? Okay, property taxes. Dubious benefits considering the offsetting property value losses. Why aren't these companies in Franklin at these town board meetings going door to door, telling people how great the pipeline and compressor will be?
Because they're working.
I don't know. Franklin could be the most well-protected town in New York, if not the country, from the threats of industrial development and corporate greed, which we know exists. The golden rule. He who has the gold rules. Franklin has the gold. We have the land, the water, the resources, the rights of way, the property that these companies want. They want the gold. I respectfully ask the board to not give them away for nothing, without any agreements, ordinances, or contingencies. Please don't give that gold away without taking any protective measures. Thank you very much.
This whole region has a depressed economy. And New York State is getting a reputation of hostility towards business.
So,
That's why respect is a key word in there.
okay.
Well, we don't respect them.
Yes, Gene.
So one of the points that Jason just raised had to do with the health impacts. And I've come across this Pennsylvania report. It's Southwest Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project. It is a very well researched and well footnoted document called A Summary on Compressor Stations and Health Impacts. They've also prepared a couple of fact sheets for school nurses and for pediatricians. Let me just read, if I may, from the first page of from the first paragraph of the nurses fact sheet. It says, all shale gas activities and facilities generate emissions. This includes construction of sites, drilling, flaring, and trucking to and from the well pad, the operations of compressor stations, metering stations, and processing plants. If children live or go to school near any of these facilities, they'll be exposed to emissions. Now, one of the interesting things that the report turns up is that
which we don't have.
one of the points that is made in the study is that the federal guidelines and the state guidelines for these emissions, such as benzene and formaldehyde, are based on tons per year that are put out into the atmosphere. In fact, as they point out, that's a very poor standard because the way it impacts people is when it comes at them, and it tends to be, it may go for weeks without any benzene, and all of a sudden there's a huge amount of benzene when they're doing a blowdown, for example, or if they have a leak from a valve. So it's very important to take into consideration the fact that these fumes may be emitted. So I would like to, I've made copies for all of you. I hope you'll have a look at it. This is something that the town of Franklin can really protect itself from, because the town, apparently, according to the law, local towns can pass air quality requirements that exceed federal or state standards. And it's all perfectly legal. And this is one thing that we really could do. As you may have seen the wind direction rose that was placed over the Constitution Pipeline map. And that shows that rather the Kinder Morgan map. And that shows that the fumes from the plant blow under the prevailing winds, mostly towards the Otsego Elementary School, but they also blow now and then, like 35% of the time, right at the Franklin School. So I think this is something really to consider. It's really important because benzene is implicated in childhood leukemia, formaldehyde in childhood asthma, and children are much more sensitive because they're smaller. They're more sensitive to contaminants.
Does oil, or crude oil have benzene or diesel? Diesel fuel?
The whole school, the
gas
stuff coming out of the school
gas
now.
engines have it too?
It's not that it has it, it's that these compressor stations put out much more of it and in a much more concentrated way than an oil burner.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Your propane tank that's hooked to your house for your heating fuel and your cooking fuel omits more than that compressor will omit.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
I don't think so. That's a myth. But I'd like.
So is your stuff. What are the ailments that these kids are complaining of?
What are the ailments that
Yeah.
they complain? Well, the principal one that has been indicted has been childhood leukemia for benzene and
that's
asthma.
only caused by a compressor. That's not caused by anything else.
Well, it's hard to say because wherever these compressors exist, there are correlations of disease patterns around the compressors and around all infrastructure. So
There's disease around now without a compressor.
No.
How
But
many people in Treadwell and in the
Texas-
existing area have died from cancer in the last 5 years?
I don't know. Have you investigated
We've got
why?
quite a few of them.
Have you
The Young
investigated
has.
why? Have you investigated why?
Because the compressor station.
No.
Is in-
Obviously, it's not the compressor station, but there are reasons for these things. It's worth finding out what they are. Thank you.
Jeff, I got a question on all of that, Mr. Starr stuff and stuff you said. Is there state regulations and federal regulations on what all of this is gonna admit?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't they have, there's a lot of business? Now gasoline is the biggest dialing polluter there is. Every time you pump your car full.
They're exempted by federal
No, they're not.
regulations.
But,
That
no,
you drive.
this pipeline is? No, they're not.
Halliburton.
There's a big thing right on it, that they're governed by what is released and how much stuff it is. And it's all in law now, and there's government agencies supposed to be watching. Why are we supposed to extra pay for it?
I think if you look at the Energy Policy Act of 2005, there's a thing called the Halliburton loophole that exempts oil and gas companies from the EPA regulations.
So how did you get here? Did you ride a bike? Did you
We
walk?
got lights now, they're burning gas now to make that light, right now.
Indeed. I'm not
That's right.
arguing with you.
And you know
I
what?
don't
We should live with
disagree.
less. That's what we should all do. We should all cut in
I
half the
can't.
amount of
I
fuel
gotta
we use.
fly.
Then maybe there'll be polar bears in 100 years.
All the wind next.
That's right.
I gotta use
We
electricity.
cook with wood in the winter and we heat with wood. That's what we should
And
be
the
doing.
wood, and I'm a big supporter of wood in the area, and it's
Okay.
one of the highest toxic things there is.
You know?
Make a video, let's go make a video.
Okay,
Over
okay,
gas.
okay, let's go on to another subject, or say